Hello guys, very warm welcome to the Math League, right? Your exclusive platform for mathematics profession. Now, today we are going to start the very first session, we can say, of your complete SAT math profession. So let me write it over here. So we are going to have complete SAT math preparation, right? Now, before I start with everything, let me brief you out like how we are going to proceed with it. Just give me a moment. Let me just brief it out how we are going to proceed with it. Now, we are going to have 10 sessions. We are going to have 10 classes, more precisely, we can say. Now, in these 10 classes, what we are going to do is um, we are going to cover a complete, we are going to cover a complete SAT math required for your, we can say for your excellent score, I can say. Trust me, just watch these videos very carefully. Just watch these videos very carefully. And after watching these videos, apply those concepts in solving your mocks or practice test. Uh, I can assure you one thing that you will almost be able to score above 720. But if you want to go target the excellent score in ACT math, let's say up 800 or 790, whatever your score is, then you have to follow some strategies. We'll have a different, we can say, set of videos on strategy class also, like what kind of strategies you need to apply to solve your mocks, like how you have to divide the questions, how you can optimize your time and everything. So we'll have a different, we can set of videos on that. But these are going to be core concept classes. So these concept classes will be really helpful for you guys. So please stay tuned and let's get started. Let me clear my screen. Just give me a moment. Okay. Now let's start with the very first topic. I can say the graphic. Let's start with the very first topic that is known as a graphing. Graphing in XY plane. Graphing in XY plane. Now, let me, uh, let me have a line. Let's suppose this is, we can say, an XY plane. Let's say this is Y axis and this is X axis, right? Now, the thing is, let's suppose if I say we have a 2 points, P and Q. Let's say this point is P and let's say this point is Q. Let's say this point is x1, y1, and let's say this point is x2, y2. Right. Now, what if I want to find out the distance? If I want to find the distance between these 2 points, if I have to find the distance between these 2 points, how we can do it? Now, you must have done the distance formula. Now, please always remember, whenever you have to find out the distance between the 2 points in an xy plane, you have to apply the distance formula. Now, distance formula is what? I'll write it over here. We'll derive it also. That is what x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square, right? That's your distance formula. This means what? If I have to find out the distance between P and Q, that is going to be what? Under root of x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square. That's your distance formula. But the question comes in how we can derive it, how we are getting this distance formula. What you need to do is what? You just need to complete this triangle. You just need to complete this triangle like this way. Let's say this angle is 90 degrees. Now, let's say this point is R. Now, let's try to figure out the coordinates of point R. If you see it very clearly, the points, this is Q and this is R, right? Now, over here, the X remains the same. So, I can write this as X2. Now, if I take this point P and Q, if I take this point as P and Q, this point P and this point, we can say R, I'm sorry, not Q, R. If this is X1, Y1, so this is going to be Y1 because this line is parallel to x-axis. Over here the y will not change, and this line is parallel to y-axis, so over here the x will not change. Now let's suppose what is PR. Now if you see in PR, y is not changing, right? So I can write PR as x2 minus x1 because this PR, if you see very clearly, PR is parallel to x-axis, right? PR is parallel to x-axis. So this means what? I can write PR as what then? X2 minus x1. Same way, I can write QR as what now? I can write QR as what now? Y2 minus Y1. So now I can use Pythagoras theorem. Now I can use a Pythagoras theorem. Now, what is a Pythagoras theorem? If I try to apply the Pythagoras theorem in triangle PQR or PRQ, whatever you want to think. So I can say that PQ square will be equals to what? PR square plus QR square. Now, what is PQ square? We need to find it out. What is PR square? That is what? X2 minus X1 whole square plus QR square is what? Y2 minus Y1 whole square. Now, if you take an under root, I can get the distance formula. That's what the distance formula says. So this is how you can derive the distance formula. Very easy concept. I hope you guys are clear now. Anyone have any kind of a doubt? Let's move forward now. Let's move on to the next concept now. Great. Now, let's suppose if I asked you one question. Let's suppose we are given 2x plus 3y is equals to 6. We are given. Now, if you want to find out if you want to find out what type of an equation it is, what type of an equation it is. Is it a linear, quadratic, cubic? How you can get to know it? You can find out a type of an equation using a concept known as degree. Now, what is a degree? It's a highest power. It's a highest power. It's a highest power of any variable. You take any variable, doesn't matter. Be, you know what, it can be x or it can be y. It's the highest power of any variable in an equation. Simple as a concept. Right. Now over here the high power is 1. Over here the power is 1. The highest power. Now I can say the highest power is 1. So I can clearly say that this is a linear equation. Simple concept. Trust me guys, SAT math, if you think of it, it's not a hardcore mathematics exam. It's actually a language plus your understanding exam. So that's why SAT maths is really very simple. You just need to understand the core concepts, nothing new. Is that okay? Now the question comes in what? Let's suppose if I want to plot this line. Let me write it over here. Let's suppose if I want to plot this line, on a graph paper, how we can do it? Right? If I want to plot this line on a graph paper, how we can do it? Let's try to understand. Let's try. Now the equation is what? 2x plus 3y is equals to 6. That's your equation. Again, let me try to draw the graph. Let's suppose we have an xy plane over here. Now let's say this is x-axis. I'm so sorry. Okay. Now this is y-axis and this is x-axis. Right? Let me write it over here. This is y-axis. Now, whenever you have to plot the line, any linear equation you have to plot on a graph paper, you always need to find out the x-intercepts. Try to find out their x-intercept and y-intercept. But the problem over here is what lot of students do have a confusion, like what is an x-intercept and what is a y. They try to mess out with it. Okay, the line that cuts on x-axis, the line that cuts on y-axis. For your SAT math, you don't have to follow these concepts. You need to remember. Now, in your SAT exam, even if it's given a line, let's suppose, or it's given a function, or any graph is given, anything is given, function, cubic equation, quadratic equation, doesn't matter, line, anything is given, right? You need to apply this concept only, the concept we are going to discuss for your x-intercept and y-intercept. For x-intercept, you need to put y is equals to 0. Simple as that. Be it a function, be it a graph, or be it a line, anything is given. Doesn't matter. For y-intercept, you need to put x is equals to 0. Simple as a concept. Now let's try to find it out. Now we are given 2x plus 3y is equals to, if I put x is equals to 0, I'll get a y-intercept. So I'll get 2 into 0 plus 3y is equals to 6. I'll get 3y is equals to 6. I'll get y is equals to 2. That's my first point. Now let me draw the points over here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. Now, x is 0 and y is 2. So this is going to be the point. Now, if I put y is equals to 0, I'll get the x-intercept. So I'll get 2x plus 3 into 0 is equals to 6. I'll get 2x is equals to 6, x is equals to 3. So this is the point. Once you have the point, just draw them with a straight line. Simple as a process. Nothing new. That's it. That's your line. Simple. That's your line 2x plus 3y is equals to 6. So this is the concept you need to follow to draw a line on a graphic as per your SAT exam is required. Is that okay? But again, I'm telling you, whenever you have to find out the x-intercept and y-intercept, you need to put y is equals to 0, you need to put x is equals to 0 corresponding. This is the only core concept you need to follow when you are finding x-intercept and y-intercept. We'll discuss it when we'll have a strategy class, like a different set of videos. You know what? We are going to have a strategy videos also. We are going to have a practice sessions also. We are going to have a mock sessions also. We'll have different set of videos for that. So we'll discuss over there how we need to apply these concepts. Is that okay? Now, let's move forward now. Great. Now, let's discuss one question over here. Let's suppose if we are given, let's discuss one question over here. Let's suppose we are given like this way. Great. Now let's suppose this is given 25, this is given 30, this is given 35, this is given 40. Now let's say this is given 1000, this is given 1050, let's say this is given 1100, and let's say this is given 1150. Great. Now the question, you know what, the question will ask, find y-intercept. Find y-intercept. The options will be like this way: 1100. The B option will be what, 1150. The C option is going to be 1000. The D option is what will be can't be determined. Now you need to find out the correct option. Now what will happen is most of the students will say, so they will say that, you know what, let's suppose let's suppose this is a line. Let's suppose this line is. So most of the student will say this is a y-intercept. They'll say, you know what, sir, the A option is the correct option. This is a wrong option. This is wrong. So guys, you need to avoid this trap. You guys have to avoid the trap. Now what the trap is over here, we have discussed it very clearly. What is a y-intercept? How we find y? So when x is equals to 0, we'll get the y-intercept. You remember? Right? Now over here, we are not given x is equals to 0 where this value x is 25. So this is not a y-intercept. This is not a y-intercept, right? So please be very careful. The correct option is this one. This is a correct answer. You have to be very careful. Avoid these kind of traps in your exam. Great. Now let's move forward. Now let's discuss the slope. Very important concept, slope intercept form. Let's discuss the slope intercept form of equation. Let's discuss the slope intercept form of an equation. Now let's see what is a slope intercept form. Now most of you must have done it. Y is equals to what, mx plus c, right? This is a slope intercept form, right? Now this is what, it's a slope, and this is what, it's a y-intercept. Y-intercept. Again, I'm telling you, if you want to find out the y-intercept, simply put x is equals to 0. Sometimes this is also known as initial value. We'll discuss it. You don't need to discuss it. Sometimes this is also known as initial value. Great. Now, let's discuss it. Now, the problem. Now, in SAT exam, in SAT math exam, finding a slope is not only the thing we are required. We need to understand more about slope. We need to understand more about slope. So let's discuss it. What is slope? What is slope? Now, when we think of a slope, it is known as a steepness. It's known as a steepness, or I can say it's a rise upon run. Now let's see how I can say it's a rise upon run. If you remember, you know what we discussed on this question. Let's suppose we are given a 2 points P and Q, and let's say this is 90 degrees. Now let's suppose, you know what, if you want to understand the slope, let's say this point is x1, y1, you remember? Let's say this point is x2, y2. Now let's say this point R. Now this is what x2 minus x1. If you remember, this is what y2 minus 1. Slope, you know what, when we think of a slope, it is always rise upon run. Now what is a rise? Think of an example. Let's suppose an aeroplane is taking off from an airport. You know what, when the aeroplane is taking off, now let's suppose this is an aeroplane. Now when the aeroplane is taking off like this way, what is happening actually? What is happening? It is running some distance. It is running some distance on x-axis, and it is also gaining some rise on y-axis. It is also gaining some rise on y-axis while it is also running a distance on x-axis. That is a slope. It's a steepness. Slope is always rise upon run. So what is a rise over here? This is rise, right? So I can say this is y2 minus y1. What is a run? That is x2 minus x1. That is a slope. So I can proudly say now the slope m is always rise upon run, which is what? y2 minus y1 upon x2 minus x1. You have to be very clear with this, guys. I hope the things are clear now. What is a slope, right? Now, let's practice some questions. Let's suppose we have an example over here. Y is equals to what? 2x plus 3. Right? Now, y is equals to what? 2x plus 3. Now, through this example, we'll try to interpret the slope. We'll try to interpret the slope. We'll try to analyze the slope, I can say. More precisely, I can say we'll try to analyze the slope. Now, if we think of a slope, what is a slope? If you just compare it, right? So over here, the slope will be 2. But the thing is, what is an actual meaning of a slope over here? What is an actual meaning of this value 2? Now, let's try to understand. Slope is actually a rise upon run, which is actually what? y2 minus y1 upon x2 minus x1, which is what? 2 upon 1. Now, what the statement is saying actually, when x increases, right? If x increases by 1 unit, y will increase by 2 units. That's the meaning of a slope. That's the meaning. Why I'm discussing, you need to know these meanings. Why? Because it is really very important. They'll ask you to find out the correct option. Like, you know what, they will give you some situation, real life example. We'll discuss the question. They will give you a real life situation, and they'll ask you, they'll try to twist you, and they'll ask you like, find out the correct statement for the best possible statement for the interpretation of the slope. So you need to know the understanding of the slope. Now let's discuss one more example over here. If I say y is equals to what? Minus 4x plus 8. Now if you see over here, the slope is minus 4. Now when I say minus 4, which is what? Rise upon run. Now what is happening over here? If I say x increases by 1 unit, y will decrease by 4 units. That's the meaning of the slope. I hope you are able to follow now. Things are clear? Great. Now, let's move forward. Now, sometimes in your exam, they'll give you a blank line. Like I'll discuss one question with you. Let's suppose we are given a graph, and they'll give you like line like this, and they'll say, tell us like whether this line has a positive slope, negative slope, or something. And we don't know the values. So how we can analyze the things, right? Now let's understand. Now, let's suppose we have an xy plane over here. We have an xy plane. Now let's say this is y-axis. This is x-axis. I'll try to, discuss the different lines possible. Now, let's suppose if the line is rising. Can you see? It is an ascending line, right? It is an ascending line. Now, whenever we have an ascending line, we have a positive slope. For this one, we'll always have a positive slope, right? Now, if we have a descending line like this way, let's suppose we have a descending line. Descending means what? It is going to the negative direction. So this will always have a negative slope. right? Now, whenever the line, I'll try to draw the parallel line, but you know what? Please bear with me. If the line is parallel, this line is parallel, if the line is parallel to x-axis, right? So it will have what? A zero, no, zero slope. The slope is zero. I can say the slope will be zero. But the thing is, if the line is parallel to y-axis, if the line is parallel to y-axis, it will have undefined slope. The slope is not defined. Not defined. Is that okay? I hope the things are clear now. Now let's move on. Let's try to understand one practical problem, like how they can ask you the real life example as a slope. Now let's discuss it. Let's suppose you have $1,000. You have $1,000 and you want to deposit in a bank. You have $1,000 and you want to deposit in a bank because bank is giving you an interest over there. Now bank says that I'll give you $10 a day as an interest. Bank will give you an $10 a day as interest. The question is what now? What amount will you get you will get after X days? Now that's a question. Now let's try to understand. Let's try to understand. I do have an initial value. So this is an initial amount, right? I do have an initial amount. Now I deposited initial amount $1,000 in a bank, and bank is giving me a $10 interest, right? And now I want to find out what amount will I get after X days. Now let's suppose amount will be what? I'll get $1,000 return first of all. I'll get my initial amount return first of all return. Now, if I'm getting an interest of $10 a day for, you know what? Think like this: $10 a day. In one day, I'm getting $10. So this means what? For X days, I'll get 10x interest. So I can say I'll get an extra 10x over here. So I can write amount as what then? 10x plus 1,000. Now, if you try to compare this with a standard equation, this becomes a linear equation, isn't it? This is a slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. If you try to see it very clearly. Now, if you just compare it now, if you try to compare it, what is the slope over here? Slope is 10. And what is a C? That is y-intercept, that is 1,000. If you remember, I discussed with you, y-intercept is also sometimes known as an initial value. Please be very careful. Sometime in a word problem, they'll ask you, this is also known as initial value. Now, the problem comes in, now we are given a slope of 10. What's the meaning of the slope over here? That is the biggest problem. And you know what? They'll ask you questions on this, right? Now, let's try to understand. I'm not going to write the complete statement, but let's try to understand it. What is a slope? That is what rise upon run, right? That is what 10 upon 1. Now, what is an y-axis over here? That is my amount. What is the next axis over here? That is days, right? So I can say that amount, that is actually amount upon days, that is 10 upon 1. So this means what? I can clearly say that now if my day increases by 1 unit, isn't it? If I can clearly say that if my day increases by 1 unit, my amount will also increase by 10. That's the meaning of the statement. I hope you are able to follow now. Things are clear? Great. Now, the last concept we need to understand about the slope or the lines. Now, please be very careful. These two concepts will be heavily asked in your SATs exam, and they will be heavily used whenever we have two parallel lines. Let's suppose we have two parallel lines and we are given with a slope. Let's say this is L1 and this is given L2. We are given with the slopes, right? If the two lines are parallel, let's suppose these are parallel lines. So their slopes are always equal. Their slopes are always equal. Now, if the two lines are perpendicular, the two lines are perpendicular, let's say that the lines are like this way. Let's say the slope of this line is m1 and the slope of this line is m2. If the two lines are perpendicular, then the product of their slope is minus 1. I hope the things are clear now. Great. Now that's it for the day. That's it for your first video. I know it's a shorter video, but that's your just and start of the videos, right? I can say this is a first session out of the 10 session. You don't need to worry. Stay tuned. We are going to discuss a lot of concept in coming further videos. And guys, I can tell you one thing. Some videos are going to be very short. Some videos are going to be long videos. So I would request you to please stay tuned. Do not leave the videos in between. And I can assure you one thing, after watching these videos, you will do your SAT math exam very confidently, right? And guys, to give you an update, uh, after these videos will be post, we will be posting SAT math strategy videos also, and we'll be practicing a lot of mocks also, a lot of practice tests also. So basically what we are trying to do over here is what we are trying to create an holistic your free SAT math preparation to, so that you can excel in your SAT math and you can target 800 score on your SAT math. I hope that is going to be really helpful. So thank you so much. See you soon. Till then, have a nice day.